Hey, what's up, everybody? If you're enjoying the video, please hit that subscribe button and give a thumbs up. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. It really helps support the channel and allows me to keep creating content for you guys.
My name is Ji-hye and I once believed in fairy tales. When I married Min-ho 2 years ago, cherry blossoms danced in the spring breeze as we exchanged vows. His gentle eyes promised me forever, and I thought I had found my home in his arms. My parents had passed away when I was young, so Min-ho's family was the one I never had. Especially his mother, who embraced me with such warmth during our engagement that I started calling her mother, even before the wedding. Ji-hye, you're the daughter I never had, she told me, her hands cupping my face. I know you'll make my son happy. I moved into their family home after the wedding. A traditional arrangement that Min-ho assured me would only be temporary until we saved enough for our own place. The ancestral house was spacious, with polished wooden floors that creaked with history and secrets. Min-ho's father was kind but distant, often away on business trips, leaving the household management to his wife. For the first few months, everything seemed perfect. I woke up early to help mother prepare breakfast, learned her family recipes, and accompanied her to the local market where she proudly introduced me to everyone. "This is my daughter-in-law," she would say, her arm linked with mine. "Isn't she lovely?" But something changed after our 6-month anniversary. I first noticed it when I found mother in my bedroom, rifling through my personal journal. She snapped it shut when I entered, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Just tidying up," she said breezily. "A wife should keep no secrets from family." That night I mentioned the incident to Min-ho as we prepared for bed. "You're being sensitive," he chuckled, kissing my forehead. "Mother is just trying to get to know you better. She adores you." Yet the next morning, mother suggested I wear a different outfit to a family gathering. "That dress makes you look common," she whispered, pressing a traditional hanbok into my arms. "We have standards in this family." I changed clothes, swallowing my discomfort. But as we posed for family photos that day, mother's grip on my shoulder tightened until her nails dug into my skin. In the picture we're both smiling. No one would notice the small crescent marks she left behind. The control began subtly. Mother would rearrange the furniture I had organized or rewash clothes I had already cleaned, claiming they weren't done properly. When I cooked, she would add more salt after tasting it, saying, "Min-ho prefers it this way." Then I stopped cooking altogether. 6 months into our marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. The joy that flooded my heart was indescribable. A baby, our baby. When I told Min-ho, he lifted me off the ground, spinning me in circles. "We're going to be parents," he whispered against my hair. "I'm the happiest man alive." When we shared the news with his parents, his father clapped Min-ho on the back with genuine delight. But mother's smile froze, her teacup suspended halfway to her lips. "A baby," she repeated, setting down her cup with a sharp clink. How unexpected. That night I overheard mother and Min-ho arguing in the study. Their voices carried through the paper-thin walls of the old house. "She's not worthy of continuing our family line," mother hissed. "Her background is questionable at best. What do we even know about her parents?" "Mother, please," Min-ho pleaded. "Ji-hye is my wife. The baby is my child, your grandchild. Blood matters in this family," she snapped back. "And we don't know what kind flows in her veins." I pressed my hands against my stomach, tears streaming down my face. The baby inside me, innocent, unborn, already judged and found wanting. After that night, mother's tactics became more overt. She would casually mention Min-ho's ex-girlfriend during dinner, reminiscing about that lovely doctor's daughter, who had such impressive family connections. She began inviting young single women to our home, introducing them to Min-ho with meaningful glances. "Soo-jin just graduated from Seoul National University," she would say. "Top of her class. Her father is a judge, you know." Min-ho seemed oblivious to these machinations, laughing off my concerns when I raised them. "Mother is just being social," he insisted. "You're hormonal because of the pregnancy." As my belly grew, so did mother's campaign against me. She started scheduling prenatal checkups without consulting me, insisting on accompanying me to every appointment. The doctor would address his comments to her rather than me, as if I were merely the vessel, not the mother. "The baby seems small," mother remarked after one such visit. "It must be your narrow hips." Women in our family have always had proper childbearing hips. When I was 7 months pregnant, I went into premature labor. The pain seized me in the middle of the night, sharp and terrifying. Min-ho was away on a business trip his mother had insisted he couldn't miss. Mother! I called out, doubled over in the hallway. Please help me. The baby, something's wrong. She appeared at her doorway, her face impassive in the dim light. She watched me struggle for a full minute before calling the ambulance. Try to be quiet, she said coldly. You're disturbing the household. At the hospital I lost the baby, our son. When Min-ho rushed back, his eyes red-rimmed and frantic, Mother was already there, consoling him. These things happen, she told him, rubbing his back. Perhaps it wasn't meant to be. She never once looked at me lying broken in the hospital bed. During my recovery, I discovered a box of herbal tea Mother had been preparing for me daily since learning of my pregnancy. Curious about its bitter taste, I had a friend who worked as a pharmacist analyze it. The results showed traces of herbs known to threaten pregnancy. When confronted, Mother's expression didn't change. Traditional remedies are often misunderstood, she said smoothly. I was only trying to strengthen the baby. If your body rejected my family's traditional medicine, perhaps it's further proof you don't belong here. Min-ho refused to believe me when I showed him the lab results. You're looking for someone to blame, he said, his voice cold with grief. Mother would never harm her own grandchild. I realized then that I was truly alone in that house. Min-ho, once my protector, had become Mother's unwitting accomplice. In the months that followed, she systematically isolated me, telling relatives I was too fragile for visitors, screening my calls and monitoring my few outings. One afternoon, I overheard her on the phone with Min-ho's boss. My son needs to focus on his career right now, she was saying. His home situation is distracting. Perhaps that overseas assignment would be best for him. 2 weeks later, Min-ho announced he had been offered a 6-month posting in the company's New York office. It's a huge opportunity, he said excitedly. Mother thinks I should take it. What about us? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. What about our marriage? It's just 6 months, he replied, already packing. Mother will take good care of you. The day after Min-ho left, Mother called a family meeting. Min-ho's father, his 2 uncles, his grandfather. All the family elders were present. I sat alone on one side of the table, feeling like a defendant at trial. We need to discuss Ji-hye's future in this family, Mother began, her voice carrying the weight of authority. Given recent disappointments. 3 months into Min-ho's absence, Mother's plan became crystal clear. She had been methodically building a case against me, cataloging every perceived failure. My inability to carry a child to term, my disrespectful attitude, my questionable background. Each accusation was delivered to Min-ho through nightly phone calls I wasn't privy to. I'm concerned about Ji-hye, I once overheard her saying. She seems unstable since losing the baby. Perhaps the family mental health issues she never disclosed to us are surfacing. I had no family history of mental health issues. My parents died in a car accident when I was 16. And I was raised by my grandmother until she passed away during my final year of university. But Mother had created an elaborate fiction about my background, planting seeds of doubt in everyone's minds. One rainy Tuesday, Mother entered my room without knocking, holding a thick folder. It's time we had a frank discussion, she said, settling herself on the edge of my bed. About your place in this family. She opened the folder and spread out a series of documents. Divorce papers already bearing Min-ho's signature, financial statements showing substantial debt in my name I had never incurred, and photographs of me with a male colleague from the accounting firm where I worked before marriage. Innocent lunch meetings edited to appear intimate. Min-ho has agreed to a quiet divorce, Mother said, her voice silky smooth. You will, of course, be compensated for your discretion. We wouldn't want any unnecessary scandal. My hands trembled as I examined the divorce papers. The signature did look like Min-ho's, but something seemed off. Min-ho would never agree to this without speaking to me first, I insisted, even as doubt crept into my heart. Mother smiled thinly. My son has always put family first. Our family. You were merely a temporary distraction. I want to speak with Min-ho, I demanded, reaching for my phone. He's instructed me to handle all communication, she replied, producing a letter. But he did write this for you. The letter was brief, typed rather than handwritten, stating that our marriage had been a mistake. That he had realized during his time abroad that we wanted different things. That his mother would arrange everything. "This isn't real," I whispered. "This isn't Min-ho." Mother's smile never faltered. "You have until the end of the week to sign the papers and vacate our home. Your belongings will be sent to whatever address you provide." That night I tried desperately to reach Min-ho. Calls, texts, emails, all went unanswered. When I finally managed to contact his company directly, I was informed that Min-ho was unreachable in a remote location for a special project. The next day I did something I had never dared before. I broke into Mother's private study. Years of secretarial work before marriage had taught me how to pick simple locks, a skill I never thought I'd use. Inside I found a second phone, one I had seen her use for family business only. The messages between her and Min-ho told a very different story from the one she had presented. She had been sending him doctored photos of me appearing to move on with my life, laughing with male friends she had hired to pose with me, looking happy and unburdened. Meanwhile, she told me he wanted nothing to do with me, that he had found someone else in New York. Most damning of all was a series of messages about my mental instability following the loss of our baby, accompanied by falsified medical reports suggesting I had become dangerous and unpredictable. "The doctors agree she needs specialized care," Mother had written. "Your father and I believe a clean break is kindest. The divorce papers simply protect you legally." Min-ho's responses showed concern and confusion, but ultimate deference to his mother's judgment. "If the doctors think it's best," he had written, "I just want her to get the help she needs." I photographed everything with shaking hands, my mind racing. The elaborate deceptions stunned me. The months of careful manipulation, the systematic destruction of my marriage, the calculated erasure of my place in Min-ho's life. When I confronted Mother at dinner that evening, showing her the evidence of her deception, I expected shock, perhaps even shame. Instead, she dabbed her lips calmly with a napkin and regarded me with cold amusement. "Did you truly believe someone like you could become part of this family permanently?" she asked. "Min-ho needed to marry. All men do. But now he needs a proper wife who can give him proper children and advance his position in society. You were merely practice." "I love him," I said, my voice breaking. "And he loves me." "Love," she scoffed, rising from the table. "A convenient fiction for people without purpose or position. This family has survived for 15 generations because we prioritize lineage over sentiment. Min-ho understands this even if he temporarily forgot." "I'll tell him everything," I threatened. "All your lies, the tea, how you turned everyone against me." For the first time I saw a flicker of concern cross her face. "Who do you think he'll believe? The mother who raised him, supported by doctors, family elders, and documented evidence? Or the unstable woman his mother compassionately tried to help?" She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Besides, Min-ho already knows you're unwell. The medication I've been adding to your food these past months has left quite an impression on everyone who's seen you lately. Your odd behavior, your memory lapses, your emotional outbursts, all carefully cultivated." The room seemed to spin around me as the pieces fell into place. My inexplicable fatigue, the gaps in my memory, the moments when household staff would exchange concerned glances after I spoke. She had been drugging me, making me appear erratic and unbalanced to build her case. "You're a monster," I breathed. "I'm a mother protecting her son and family legacy," she corrected. "Something your own mother failed to teach you before her convenient death." At the mention of my parents, something inside me snapped. Years of suppressed rage, grief, and humiliation boiled over in one blinding moment. I lunged across the table, sending fine china crashing to the floor, my hands reaching for her throat. Security cameras would later show what appeared to be an unprovoked attack, exactly as Mother had planned. When the household staff pulled me away, Mother played her final card. "You see?" she gasped, clutching her neck dramatically. "This is exactly what the doctors warned us about. Call Min-ho immediately, tell him it's an emergency." I was sedated and taken to a private clinic that night, a mental health facility, owned by a cousin of Mother's. Through the haze of forced medication I heard the staff discussing my case. Postpartum psychosis, delusional paranoia, violent tendencies. All fabricated, all part of Mother's meticulous plan. For 3 days I drifted in and out of consciousness, fighting against the fog in my mind. On the fourth day, a young nurse, new to the facility and unaware of the politics at play, left her phone unattended while checking my vitals. I seized the opportunity, dialing the one number I had memorized, Haewon, my college roommate who had remained loyal despite Mother's attempts to alienate my friends. "Get me out," I whispered urgently. "And bring a lawyer." 48 hours later, Haewon arrived with her cousin, a human rights attorney specializing in cases of involuntary commitment. The confrontation that followed was brief but effective. Threats of media exposure, malpractice suits, and criminal charges for unlawful detention. By nightfall, I was released into Haewon's custody with my medical records carefully secured as evidence. From the safety of Haewon's apartment, I launched my counterattack. First, I sent Minho a comprehensive email detailing everything with the evidence I had gathered: the fake medical reports, the drugged tea, the manufactured photos, the tampering with my food. I included testimonials from former household staff who had witnessed Mother's behavior but had been too afraid to speak up. Then I waited. 3 days later, Minho called. His voice sounded hollow, disbelieving. "Is it true?" he asked without preamble. "All of it. Every word," I replied, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. The silence stretched between us, 5 years of marriage balanced on a knife's edge. "I'm coming home," he finally said. "We'll fix this. Together." Hope fluttered in my chest, fragile, cautious. "When?" "My flight lands tomorrow evening. Meet me at our old cafe near the university. Just you and me like before." For the first time in months, I slept without nightmares. The next day I dressed carefully, my hands trembling with anticipation and fear. This meeting would determine everything: our marriage, our future, the truth of our past. The cafe was quiet when I arrived, just a few students huddled over laptops in the corner. I chose our old table by the window and ordered 2 Americanos, Minho's favorite. As the minutes ticked by, I rehearsed what I would say, how I would forgive him for doubting me, how we would rebuild. At exactly 7 o'clock, the door opened. But it wasn't Minho who entered. It was Mother. She glided toward me, elegant in a charcoal gray suit, seating herself across from me with the confidence of someone who has never lost a battle. "Where is Minho?" I demanded, already knowing the answer. "My son is where he belongs, with family who truly understand what's best for him," she replied, sliding a manila envelope across the table. "These are the final divorce papers. Sign them and this unpleasantness ends today. Fight me and I will destroy whatever remains of your reputation, your career prospects, your very identity." "Minho knows the truth now," I insisted. "He called me." Mother's smile was almost pitying. "That wasn't Minho. My driver is quite skilled at voice imitation, a talent from his previous career in entertainment. Useful for situations requiring delicate management." The realization that I had been manipulated yet again left me breathless with rage and despair. "Why do you hate me so much? What did I ever do to deserve this?" For a moment, something like genuine emotion flickered across Mother's face. "Hate? This was never about you. You're merely an obstacle to be removed like countless others before you. Did you think you were the first?" Minho's father had an inappropriate attachment before me as well. The weak-minded men in this family occasionally require correction. She checked her watch impatiently. "My son is currently on a flight to Paris with Seo-yun, the Supreme Court Justice's daughter. Their engagement will be announced next month. A strategic alliance that will secure our family's position for generations. Your chapter in our story is over." I stared at the divorce papers, my mind racing through possibilities, escape routes, counterattacks, and found none. Mother had outmaneuvered me at every turn, her network of connections and influence far beyond my reach. "What if I go public? Tell everyone what you've done?" I asked, a final desperate threat. "With what evidence?" "The proof you gathered has already been destroyed. A regrettable fire at Haewon's apartment this morning. Such a tragedy. I do hope she had insurance." Mother's eyes glittered with malice. "Your medical records now show a long history of delusional behavior. No media outlet would risk the libel suit to publish your claims." The walls seemed to close in around me as I realized the completeness of her victory. With trembling hands, I signed the papers, each stroke of the pen severing me from the life I had believed in, the man I had loved, the future I had imagined. Mother collected the documents with a satisfied nod. A wise decision. The agreed-upon settlement will be transferred to your account today. Enough for you to start fresh somewhere far from Seoul. As she rose to leave, she paused, her hand resting lightly on my shoulder. You know, in another life I might have truly welcomed you as a daughter. You have a certain resilience I admire. But family legacy must always come first. I hope someday you'll understand. I remained at the table long after she left, watching the untouched coffee grow cold. Outside, cherry blossoms drifted past the window, the same delicate pink blooms that had decorated my wedding day. 3 months later, I stood at the departure gate at Incheon Airport, a one-way ticket to Toronto in my hand. My phone buzzed with a news alert. The engagement of Chaebol heir Min-ho Lee to prosecutor's daughter Seo-yeon Park, a love match arranged by the groom's beloved mother. Accompanying the article was a photo of the happy couple, Min-ho's arm wrapped around a poised young woman who smiled confidently at the camera. Behind them stood mother, resplendent in traditional hanbok, her hand possessively gripping her son's shoulder, her nails digging into the fabric of his suit, a gesture I knew all too well. As I boarded the plane, my phone buzzed one final time. An anonymous text message containing only an image. Mother and Min-ho's father on their wedding day, nearly 30 years ago. The young bride was smiling, but her eyes held a haunted quality I recognized immediately. The look of someone who had fought and lost against an immovable force. The message below the photo read simply, "History repeats. He was once you. You could have become her." I turned off my phone as the plane taxied down the runway, leaving behind the shattered remnants of a life built on illusions. But as the aircraft lifted into the clouds, I felt something unexpected. Not just grief or defeat, but a strange, cold clarity. Mother had taught me more than she realized. About power. About patience. About the ruthless pursuit of goals. In my carry-on bag was a small journal containing every detail of the past 2 years. Dates, conversations, witnesses, evidence that no fire could erase. And in my mind a plan was already forming, not for revenge but for justice. Not just for me, but for the woman in that wedding photo, for Min-ho, and for whoever would have come after Seo-yeon when she inevitably failed to meet mother's impossible standards. Some battles are lost. But wars can be won with time, knowledge, and the right allies. Mother had merely taught me which weapons to use. As Seoul disappeared beneath the clouds, I smiled for the first time in months. This story wasn't over yet. It was merely changing narrators.